Novo Ogaryovo, which is a place near Rubliovka. Rubliovka is a place where the rich Russians have their dacha. I've been to it actually many times. I've not been to Putin's residence, as far as I know, but I suppose I've been very close to it. And I would have thought that there's no reason at all for Putin to have a residence in the Kremlin if he's living near Rubliovka. If he's also living somewhere near Sochi, which I think is highly unlikely given the proximity of Sochi to the theatre of war that he started in Ukraine, I think then there might be some reason to have some sort of personal quarters fully functioning in the Kremlin. So, simply that lie suggests that this is a false flag, that the drone attack on the Kremlin was a false flag. Secondly, the amount of footage that's come out is controlled. So we've simply got two images of one drone or possibly two drones, a bit of smoke in the Kremlin. If the Kremlin had actually been hit by a drone, I think there would have been so many other images, even in the middle of the night. There's just two specific images. I think there's three videos. Two of those videos are certainly of the same place. And there's not much more than a bit of smoke. And on the domed building, there's two people. What are they doing? Except perhaps controlling this radio-controlled drone and making sure that it drops its payload somewhere where it's not going to do too much damage. It's very unclear. There is another possibility that those two men on that dome were racing up to try to protect the president at all costs. I think it's unlikely. I think it's highly unlikely. I think it's more likely that this is a staged false flag because it is almost impossible, I think, given the amount of effort made by Putin to defend Moscow, given the missile weapons stuck on the roof of the defense ministry and so on. It just isn't conceivable that a drone could have got through. If it did get through, that would be a public humiliation. That Putin wants people to believe it got through could that be a public humiliation? Well, yes. Yes, if it's going to end there, but it's not going to end there. Today we heard one of the end games being proposed. We heard it openly. And that is a public assassination of Zelensky. And today Zelensky is in The Hague. He's out of Ukraine. I think his security is very much under threat. This has been timed for the time when he is out of Ukraine. His spokespeople in Ukraine have said absolutely that the drone attack is absolutely nothing to do with Ukraine. It's not been authorized by Zelensky, and there's no military advantage to it. More than that, it would never have been authorized by the United States or approved by the NATO allies, because it serves no purpose except to demonstrate the reach of Ukraine should it want. Ukraine wants to defend itself. It doesn't want to attack Russia. And the attacks into Russia have always been followed by a violent response from the Kremlin, which suggests, again, that all of this is a false flag. There's so many of these false flags as to see this as the Russian game book. And in fact, we know from the Soviet era that this is exactly the Russian game book. And now we've heard from Mr. Medvedev, who says the physical elimination of Zelensky and his cabal is the response, is what Russia should engineer now, that Zelensky has tried to take out our president. One president for another, one hit for another. This is a plan for a plan to break the tradition in international war of not taking out the leader. This is a plan to decapitate the Ukrainian system. And it could indeed have great significance should that be successful, because so much of the war has been engineered by the charisma of Zelensky. But I think Mr. Putin and his friends misunderstand, because that charisma has become infectious. You only have to meet any Ukrainian to sense that shared charisma. If Zelensky is taken out, there will be another Zelensky in his place, probably even more powerful and more determined. Mr. Zelensky simply epitomizes the national Ukrainian character and the national Ukrainian response to this aggressive invasion. And I think that's why this is a miscalculation, if this is the case. There is another solution, and it continues the idea of the false flag, and that is that this is an option for Mr. Putin to present this threat to the Russian people. If Moscow can be hit, if your president's apartments can be hit, then you can be hit. So therefore, mass mobilization. That's another possibility. Let's get this out of the way as quickly as possible. The other possibility is simply stagemanship for the upcoming 9th of May parades, which is equally entirely understandable within the Putin character. Look how brave I am. I am defying the terrorists. Or, I can't appear at this parade because of so much terrorism, or indeed the parade is cancelled. All of these are possibilities, but most of it is predicated on the idea that this is a false flag and that there never was a Ukrainian drone anywhere near the Kremlin. And I think it's possible that the attack on the oil tanks in Crimea may be seen in the same way. I can't see the advantage to Ukraine, and that too may be a false flag, an excuse for escalating this problem, for escalating the war, for escalating the missile attacks, because that's all Russia's got left, unless it performs a major mobilization, and I hope it doesn't.